All right, you all know the drill. When your number is called, step forward and repeat the phrase you've been given. Understand?
5.
You have 5 seconds to get out of here.
Numbers do not lie.
Number 4, step forward.
4.
First thing you've said in the last 4 hours.
Do we have a settlement?
No!
Number 3, step forward.
3.
No big deal. You are no longer my number 3.
It's all part of the plan.
Number 2, step forward.
2.
You brought too many.
Sound good?
Yes, sir!
Number 1, step forward.
1.
I'm the king of the world!
All right, well, let's go to our final portion of the Strictly Business podcast. We're heading to what's going to be our weekly power ranking segment, where we're just going to rank our top 5 in whatever category we feel like that day. And today's category is our top 5 preseason surprises. These surprises can be good or bad, and we have 5 separate ones between Rich and I, so a lot of discussion to happen here. Rich, I'll open up the floor. My 5th surprise, if you will, is around Rich's ramble. It's around Michael Vick. And my surprise is, how come he hasn't been more competitive about trying to get the starting job with the New York Jets? This preseason, Michael Vick is 12 of 20 for 122 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 8 rushes for 40 yards. But he was quoted as saying this recently: "I'm at a very good place, very relaxed. Things are more laid back now as far as football and off the field. No stress, no pressure. Even though when you play football, there's always some sort of pressure. But at this stage in my career, I'm just trying to refresh and regroup and see where it takes me." Where is the competitive fire? Michael Vick, who was the starter last year for the Philadelphia Eagles, and now he's residing and happy as a backup. Why is that? That surprises me. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it's good that he's it's good in the sense that he's laying low, but also I think the Jets really wanted to give Geno Smith a fair shot. And to give him a fair shot, this is what they need to do. They needed to show Geno, look, we have this guy, Michael Vick, who is a name who has shown in the past that he could be one of the better quarterbacks in the league, but we are still picking you over this guy. So you are getting the first play snaps. He's going to sit on the bench, and he's going to be watching you. So I think as much as you want to say, oh, Michael Vick doesn't want it, of course Michael Vick wants it. But I also think it's a combination of both. Maybe Mike Vick is getting a little timid maybe because he hasn't played. Maybe he's afraid to get hurt. But I also think it's more of the Jets confiding their confidence into Geno Smith and actually giving him a fair shot into, look, you're going to be the starting quarterback unless we need to make a change.
Well, then why did Michael Vick go to the New York Jets? Why? When he had a chance to start at another team that doesn't have a quarterback that they're looking for. Why go to the New York Jets? I don't understand why you lose that competitive spirit to play every single week. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I do agree. It is a tough. It's a much. I think the surprise is it's not as big of a story as we thought it was going to be.
Yes.
The Jets, another quarterback controversy. It's going to be another story. It's going to be another Mark Sanchez, Geno Smith type of battle like we had last year. But this year, it's just, you know what? Geno's their guy. Mike Vick is kind of staying out of the limelight, and Geno's just trying to do his own thing.
Yeah, I guess that just confuses me that there's no controversy with the Jets. I guess that's just
I mean, it is very early on in the season, so I'm sure they're going to think of something to get in the headline.
There you go.
For me, honestly, as a Giants fan, I had to go with some Giants for my surprises. I was really pleasantly surprised with Ryan Nassib. Like I said before, the dude was really, really good in the preseason. He had 5 touchdowns, no picks. He had over 60% completion percentage, over 400 yards passing. Well, that's fantastic. As a backup quarterback, he's just coming in, and he's the reason why we've been winning these preseason games.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also going to say Rashad Jennings has been another surprise because I didn't think he was going to be as reliable as a running back as he's been. So I guess those are my 2 right there, are Ryan Nassib and Rashad Jennings. The first preseason game, he had 67 yards of Rashad Jennings, and then he had a 73-yard run, a nice burst of speed in week 2. So he's proved that, you know what, he can be the every down back for the Giants, and the Giants are going to need, like we said before, the Giants are going to need a good, steady running game to kind of open up that new offense, new passing game that they're gonna have.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna piggyback off of you because the Giants are my fourth surprise, if you will. Out of my 5, they're ranked number 4. The fact that they're 4-0 this preseason, and they looked so bad. But Mike Lupica had a great quote saying, "At least about this, there's no question. If the Giants are allowed to play against the other second team or third team defense with their own second team offense, they will be the favorites to win the Super Bowl." So think about this: if the backups played, the Giants would be fantastic. But I'm going to piggyback right off you because right now they're ranked my 4th surprise. In fact, they're 4-0 and their starts look so bad. So I'm right there with you at them being a surprise.
Yeah, they've been kind of. I'm very disappointed in their play so far. But the two things I can say is Ryan Hassett played his butt off, and Rashad Jennings is going to be a starter for the Giants, which is not something that I thought was a realistic shot. For my next surprise, it might not be a surprise to many, but I was surprised that Blake Bortles had as good as a preseason as he did.
Yeah.
Look, this team it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. You don't know what you're gonna you know what you're gonna get. They aren't a good team, and they had the third pick, I believe, the third pick in the draft, and they picked Blake Bortles. They could have had as many guys they wanted. They shied away from Johnny Manziel. They shied away from a bunch of quarterbacks, and they picked Blake Bortles, which was kind of a surprise to me and you. I remember I was in the same room as you when the NFL draft, and we were both surprised that they went with Bortles. But the guy has the size, and they're starting to have articles written about this guy that he is going to be, he has all the signs to be their next franchise quarterback, and I think it's just a surprise that from what it looks like, the Jaguars actually did something right and got a guy that might be there for years to come. So that's going to be my 4th surprise is that Blake Bortles is as good as advertised.
Yeah, he has played really good, and I don't think the plan for them to redshirt him this season is going to pan out at all because he's outplayed Chad Henne, and he played exceptionally well throughout the preseason. I think Jacksonville, they're going to improve this year from last year. I think that last year you saw them play really well at the tail end of the season, and I think Toby Gerhart, is going to be good at running back for them, given the chance to play starter snaps. And I'm with you. I don't have him on my list, but I agree with you that he's impressed me, and I think he's earned himself at least the discussion to be the starting quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so my 3rd surprise, I'm sticking with the quarterback, but I'm going to the other conference. I'm going to the Minnesota Vikings. I'm surprised with how well the Minnesota Vikings, both quarterbacks, Matt Castle and Teddy Bridgewater, are playing. Matt Castle has played really well when he was going to be under fire. Teddy Bridgewater was supposed to be the most NFL-ready quarterback out of the draft. He was picked last in the first round, but Matt Castle this preseason has thrown for 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, has thrown for over 350 yards, has played pretty well and has had good control of the offense. Teddy Bridgewater, on the other hand, has thrown for 4 touchdowns, about 250 yards, and no interceptions for him. They both played exceptionally well, and I'm really curious to see how well the Vikings are going to play because I think quarterback might have been their weakest point. But with both these quarterbacks playing well now, granted it's the preseason, I'm curious to see what's going to happen in the regular season now with the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I didn't think that I was worried about how Teddy Bridgewater's game was going to kind of transition into the NFL set. Almost kind of like how I was worried about Johnny Manziel because they're skinnier people. Their skinnier quarterbacks rely on their feet a lot. And when the Minnesota Vikings took him, I kind of was like, that's actually a good spot for him. Not too much pressure for him right away. And yeah, I agree with you. That's definitely a surprise that how he's been able to handle it and how good he's played so far. So yeah, I definitely agree that Teddy Bridgewater has done well for the Vikings.
Yeah, and how bad does Christian Ponder feel right now?
man.
How bad does he feel? But he's got one thing going for him. He's married to Samantha Ponder, so things are okay for him.
Yeah, things are going great for him. As he can be flipping burgers anywhere, and he is still doing better than any of us. So
yeah, he's doing okay on that front.
He's doing just okay. Yeah, he's doing just fine. I might since I used the two Giants and I used Blake Bortles. All right, this is my second surprise, my second biggest surprise. Or just my second surprise, because I don't even know if this is as big, but probably the biggest one that I have is Zach Mettenberger of the Tennessee Titans. This dude, going into the draft, very few people talking about him. He's an LSU guy. He gets drafted by the Titans, made no splash on ESPN on anything. He was on Gruden's camp, which is the only time I saw him. Was when he was on Gruden's camp, but he obviously went to a school that knows how to win in LSU. He goes to the Titans, and he has 504 passing yards in the preseason, and no one's really talking about him.
Yeah.
And if I'm Jake Locker, I'm a little worried right now because this guy has shown so much promise, and the Titans kind of have the talent to be successful, and they have this guy throwing dimes right away coming out of college. So I think Zach Mettenberger has been a fantastic get for the Titans.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it, Jake Locker has not had a proven healthy track record. So you got to wonder if Mettenberger gets the opportunity, what's going to happen there. But I agree with you. He has impressed me quite a bit in the preseason. And, I mean, you're right. Nobody's talking about him. I don't think many people are talking about him now, frankly.
Yeah.
All right, Sorry to cut you off, but segue into my second surprise. I'm with you on the Tennessee Titans, but I'm going to the wide receiver spot. I'm going to Justin Hunter. I've been really impressed with what I've seen for him so far in the preseason. He's climbing up the depth chart for the Tennessee Titans. And I think last year he only had 18 receptions, but 4 of them were for touchdowns. He only played 36% of the team snaps. But so far this preseason, he already has 10 targets. He's caught 2 touchdowns, and I think he's going to be the number 1 or number 2 receiver for the Tennessee Titans, and maybe he'll be catching passes from Zach Mettenberger at some point this season.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. This Titans team can be dangerous. They have kind of the right type of players to be successful. Now it's kind of just putting all those pieces together because they've been a team that's been bad for a while, but they've showed promise. Starting into last year, they've showed promise, and they're trying to kind of get away from the Chris Johnson years. And they're just trying to build, and they kind of they're starting to have the right pieces to be deadly. So if I'm a team and the Titans are on my schedule, it's not like the old Titans anymore where you're going to run over them. They're going to be a team that you really need to pay attention to because, like I said, especially if Mettenberger is going to be their quarterback, because I don't trust Jake Locker at all. They're going to be a team that's going to be tough.
Yeah, and you got to remember they're under new head coach Ken Wisenhunt as well, and he likes to throw the ball. He's not a running head coach. He likes to throw the ball. I believe Philip Rivers threw the ball quite a bit last year for San Diego, and when Wisenhunt was with the Cardinals, you didn't know who was their running back every week, but you knew that Larry Fitzgerald was going to get a lot of throws. So I think it's going to be a new look offense for the Titans, and I think their wide receivers and whoever's at quarterback is going to need to learn to throw the ball a lot more and be a lot more effective.
I had the Giants as my biggest surprise, but I'll give you one more because the Giants have been so bad that I was not ready for it. I wasn't ready for Eli Manning to look as lost and the line to look as lost. So the Giants were my big surprise, but I'll give you probably one surprise that no one would ever saw coming was Peyton Manning got hit with a taunting penalty. I think that is a huge surprise. Because this guy who always does the right thing and always, nice, calm, cool, and collected, he gets into DJ Swearinger's face, the guy who hit your former boy Wes Welker, giving him another concussion. And we know Wes Welker's kind of concussion history. So anytime this guy kind of gets hit hard, you always wonder. And he did get diagnosed with another concussion. So we have to kind of look for that going into the regular season. But after Peyton Manning threw a touchdown pass to Emmanuel Sanders, Peyton runs all the way up, and people think he's going to go congratulate his new teammate, Emmanuel Sanders. He goes right into DJ Swearinger's space and has some words for him, and he gets hit with a taunting penalty. So I don't know about you, Stenko, but that is something that, for me, that was really surprising, and that I like to see that in Peyton for sticking up for his guys, because it's like, you know what? I might be Peyton Manning, but you don't do that to my players. You know, it's like he's sticking up for his receivers, and that's the difference. You want to see that type of leadership in your guys. So I don't know about you, but I like the fact that Peyton got into this guy's face.
Yo, I loved it. When I saw the clip, I was like, this is the Peyton Manning that I think nobody really gets to see that often, but I think that's the Peyton Manning that he really is. He's super competitive and super protective of his guys, but he shows it in a different way. He shows it by driving 80 yards and scoring on you within 2 minutes if you diss one of his players. But I loved it. I'm completely with you. I never thought I'd see it. I want to know if he's had another one ever in his career. Like I don't know if he has or not, but it was fun to watch just the replay because I didn't see it live, but fun to watch people writing articles about it on Bleacher Report or whatever, and the clip. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was like you said, you might never see that again. It wasn't seen, and you may never see that again. That's why, I mean, for me, that has to be my biggest surprise to preseason.
But would he do that in a regular season game when the yards mattered?
That's a good question. That's a good question. But also, not to prolong this at all, but I was reading that the Broncos and the Texans shared a field for practice, and J.J. Watt and a defensive lineman from the Broncos got into it in practice, and DJ Swearinger was in the middle of it. And I think this might stem from them practicing together and then having that previous altercation. So this might be more than what we saw on the field. Yes, he hit Wes Welker, and that was probably 95% of why he went up to him. But it might be because also that he saw this guy, DJ Swearinger, at practice when they were practicing together, kind of almost doing the same type of stuff, getting in your face and everything. I think I read that DJ Swearinger might have made an interception on Peyton, and Peyton didn't like how Swearinger was coming off. He might have hurt him a little too much. So I think there might be more to this story than what we saw on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, that's a great point. I didn't know that about them sharing a practice field, so I bet you that it does stem a little bit from that. But my number one surprise, it's not a player, it's not a team, it's the people who wear the black and white, the zebras, the officials. My number one surprise is how many penalties have been thrown, to put it plainly, how big the points and emphasis have been in terms of the defensive backs and cornerbacks trying to guard wide receivers. So many illegal contacts, so many pass interference, so many holdings that it's a problem for me watching a game. Now, granted, the preseason week 3, the penalties did go down, but they're still more than average. In the preseason, they're averaging roughly 24 penalties a game, and they only averaged 12 in the regular season last year. And I think it's a huge problem because you remember when the Patriots beat up on the Colts wide receivers back when Peyton Manning was with the Colts, they established these penalties where the defensive back can't hold on to receivers, and they made it easier for wide receivers. You saw the Seattle Seahawks last year beat up any wide receiving core they went against. And again, the NFL is like, we'll make it easier for the receivers. And my biggest surprise is just how easy it is to get a defense penalty call on you now. If you have any contact after 5 yards, it's an automatic first down. And I think it needs to change. I really hope the officials let up come the regular season, because that for me is the biggest surprise. And if the trend continues, I'm actually worried about the NFL, because guess what? People like seeing points. People also like seeing hard hits. And how many rules are you going to put in place where you're going to eliminate the physical aspect of football?
Because I agree with you, Stenko. There was way too many penalty calls, in my opinion, last year, and they're only getting worse. And the problem is that I'm not even blaming the officials, because by rule, that's a penalty, and they're just because if they don't call that penalty, then in their meetings, they're going to get in trouble for not stressing the rule. So it's not necessarily, these guys keep calling penalties, but that's just how it's getting officiated now, and that's the rules coming from above how they want this game to be officiated. So they kind of got to be lenient a little bit. The one thing that is tough is that they're trying to eliminate the gray area, like, if this happens, it's a penalty immediately. So it could be the slightest touch of the hand, and it could be an illegal contact. So they want to eliminate, well, you're not going to call this in this situation. They want to get rid of that. And the problem is you can't get rid of that. You need to kind of know where the game is. And something that you might call in the first quarter, unfortunately, you might not call in the fourth quarter. And the NFL doesn't like that, but I think that's the problem. They're trying to eliminate any gray area there is so there's no controversy. But if anything, it's creating more controversy because there's been so many penalties called.
Yeah, and none of the coaches are in favor of it from what I've heard. How Kaufman has expressed his annoyance easily. He put it plainly. Obviously, Pete Carroll doesn't like it because he breeds physical defensive backs. He's got Richard Sherman, the most physical of them all. So I'm curious to see where it goes forward. I think it will die down. I think maybe the first couple weeks of the regular season you're going to see a lot of penalties, but I think eventually it's going to dwindle down. Just as the players get more used to it and as people start forgetting about it more, eventually the officials will find a comfort zone with it. But I really hope it doesn't affect the NFL, and I really hope it doesn't affect the pace of play if the referees have to meet up at every other play for a penalty. Baseball has that problem with pace of play. Don't let the NFL have that problem as well.
Yeah, because then you're watching it, and then you're going to get angry more than you're going to enjoy it, and then that's when there's going to become a problem because the NFL has become so popular the past 10 years that the last thing they want to do is kind of like stop their momentum. And this could be something that could be an issue because it's only getting worse. So it's almost like how far is this going to go? And I think that's why fans are starting to get worried, like you and me right now, because we're starting to see even more flags in the preseason, which is just going to carry over into the regular season. So we'll see how it transitions. Maybe they don't call as much in the regular season, which is something that I'm hoping for. But, they are all for the safety of the players, but maybe they're doing a little too much micromanaging for a fan standpoint and honestly for the player standpoint because the players aren't liking it either.
No, they hate it. Unless you're a quarterback who missed an open receiver, but there's a penalty, so it's an automatic first down. Then they might like it.
Right, of course, and that's something that I've argued when comparing a quarterback, 10, 15 years ago to a quarterback now. It's so hard to kind of compare them because Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, even Peyton Manning a little bit. They've gotten their drives kind of long because of a bad penalty. A hit to the head, a illegal contact with the wide receiver. So because of these penalties, it's kind of padding stats sometimes for these quarterbacks that, the Terry Bradshaws of the world, even like Dan Marino didn't have it, or Steve Young, they didn't have those types of calls. So that's one thing that I kind of argue. It's hard to argue over a quarterback 10, 15 years ago to quarterbacks now because just the way the game's officiated, it's kind of leaning towards it's benefiting the quarterback more than it's hurting him.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. Mike, is there anything else you want to touch on for our first ever Strictly Business podcast before we hang it up?
I honestly think we've covered it all. I think this has been a successful first show. I don't know how you feel.
I do feel there's one thing I want to say. I want to say best wishes to Sam Bradford. A second torn ACL on the same knee, I believe, that he had the first surgery on. I genuinely feel bad for him because I think the kid has talent. But he's out now for his second year in the Rams, and Jeff Fisher are put in a tough spot for the second straight season. So I want to say I feel bad for him because I think I have the Rams doing pretty well this season, but they're going to take a hit now losing Sam Bradford, and I wish him all the best in his recovery.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's well said. That is well said, John. Yeah, because the Rams, they have a very solid defense, and they have Sam Bradford. When healthy, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league, but unfortunately, he just can't stay on the field. So it's kind of, without him on the field, they have, their offense just deteriorates because they rely on this guy, and with him out even longer, who knows how he's going to come back now after a second torn ACL. So it's going to be rough for him, and we wish him all the best.
Yeah, so hopefully his surgery goes well, and he'll be back on the field sooner rather than later. But I want to thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the first ever Strictly Business podcast. I'm John Stanko, Mike Ritz on the other end of the line. Be sure to tune in next week where we're going to definitely tackle some more NFL. It's going to be prediction time, prediction of the divisions and some award winners and what we see in the season coming ahead. So, Mike, I think it went pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it.
Oh, yeah. I think this is the start of something special here, Johnny.
It's the start of something special. And if you have any suggestions or topics of conversation you want us to cover, feel free. We're going to be creating a Facebook page and a YouTube page. We're going to advertise our Twitter handles. And listeners, if you have our phone numbers, feel free to text us or call us for any suggestions. We are always welcome to that. So I want to thank you, everyone, for listening. For Mike Ritz and John Stanko, tune in next week to Strictly Business.